Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video we're going to talk about layers, in particular layers for image maps, layers that you're used to seeing in programs like Photoshop and other 2D paint applications, GIMP, etc. These are pretty much exactly the same thing. There might be a few features here and there slightly different, but it's the exact same concept. We're just going to have each map has multiple layers, which you can have different blending modes, and the opacity, or we call strength, can be adjusted, and you can toggle them so they're visible or locked. So anyway, we're going to get through. We're going to do a little project here. Just going to apply some makeup to this model. This is it's a stock model of a Victoria 4 from Daz 3D, and it has one of their elite high resolution textures on it. So this texture that we're going to be painting on top of here is 4000 by 4000 pixels, 4096 to be precise. Blacksmith 3D handles high resolution texture maps very well. It can actually handle much higher than 4096 by 4096 if you have the CPU and RAM. So that is one thing that makes this program unique. But anyway, that's another story. Let's get on talking about the layers. So we're just gonna mosey along here, and like I said, as in other videos, I'm just going to commentate on top of my previous things. So we created a new layer here by right-clicking and on anywhere in this the image map section, and then created one called eyeshadow. And you notice here that we have base, and that one I created ahead of time because by default there's no layers. And when you create the first layer, then it's kind of just a duplicate of what was there, but it's been upgraded to a layer from just a regular old image. So anyway, I have the eyeshadow right now, and I chose blue color, and right now I'm just painting a really solid color under her eyes, and we're obviously don't want it to look like this in the end. We're going to be changing the opacity of the layer itself rather than using a really weak brush stroke. So we're going to use the brush strokes really strong and then blend it together with the image map settings, the layers down here for the opacity. Okay, and there's different types of layers, so I just wanted to point that out. That's why down in this group we have display groups as one type of layer, and that's the layers you would see in previous versions of Blacksmith 3D. And now image maps are, again, they're just layers for texture maps, as you would normally see in 2D painting applications. And it also, by having these different boxes, it allows us to put different types of layers as time goes on. So if we decide to do any other type of layer, it'll be down here in its own little subgroup. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. So anyway, we're just doing a few things. I'm smudging here. I'm taking that blue and I'm just sort of shaping. And you notice this little grid here. This is because when the paint stroke, when you're doing it, this is kind of like a temporary preview overlay. The paint doesn't actually get applied until you release the stroke. And because on this layer, this whole area is all transparent. This is the only place with any solid color pixels. So when you're doing that stroke and you see that little grid show up, that's just telling you that on this layer, this stuff is transparent. So you're going to get a little grid to show you that. Now, doing the blur, this is that ring of fire effect. This is used whenever the software doesn't or doesn't want to or can't display the contents of the stroke until you release the cursor. Then it'll use that ring of fire effect. So anyway, I right-clicked on the layer. Let's go back up here, and I right-clicked on the layer, and I'm going to pause. And these are all of our blending types. Normal being exactly that. It's just the colors are replaced, and if the strength is down, it gets blended accordingly. We have light and dark and multiply. You probably have seen a lot of these before. And for this project, we're going to do a lot of the color type. And what this does is it takes the both the hue and the saturation of this of the layer that you're in question, and it blends it with the previous layer before. So it basically takes the color, takes the these pixels and replaces this general color with it, but it gives all that grittiness. But I'm going to show you that in a second here. Here we go. See, and this is it with full opacity. You see how the lights and the dark still show up. But anyway, but we don't want that much makeup, so we're just going to take this strength down so it's really low. So this is just a really subtle effect. Much like real life, you don't want to wear too much makeup. Subtlety is the key. So anyway, we're backing out here. Notice I also have symmetry on, so anything I paint on this side is showing up on the other side here. Now I created a new layer again. This one's going to be called lipstick. Again, you just right click anywhere here and you say create new layer. And I think I'm going to start off again by leaving it the normal blending mode first to lay down that general color, and then I'm going to change it and then change the opacity to what I like. And so here I am. I'm just going to color in the lips with a solid red color. Nothing really terribly surprising here. Anyway, let's skip ahead a little bit. There we go. Just see, now it's nice and solid red. Now I'm going to go again and tweak. I'm going to go for the color again, the color blending type. And that's still a little strong. Oh yeah, what I'm going to do is here, I'm just showing a few different ones because I'm just kind of saying, oh, well, let's experiment with some different blending types, see if I get something I like. And so it's hue down. I'm going to try soft light, hard light, a few of these. And I think in the end of the day, I'm just going to be satisfied with color again, if I remember correctly. Overlay. So yeah, I did. So anyway, I'm going to skip ahead here. And again, I'm adjusting the strength, the opacity of this layer. And we settled on here. And you can always change that later too if you decide that at a later time that you want to adjust these strengths. That's the whole point of doing layers, is that you do each layer separately and then you can sort of tweak them anytime you want. I'm going to create a new layer now. And I'm going to call this blush, and it's just going to add a little color to the cheeks. And not too much, I'm just going to skip ahead. So I sort of took this pinkish color, sort of used the eraser brush here to sort of carve out the shape. So again, this is that, let me get back here and catch this. And where is it? Come to me. There it is. Okay, see? This is what this little grid, this is that familiar transparent grid. Like I said, when you're doing this paint stroke, this is kind of like a temporary sort of quick preview of what's going into that layer. So that is why in this layer, all of the stuff is transparent. So when you do this, it's there. So it's it has its advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantage is it doesn't look exactly what it's going to look like when you let go of the mouse. But the advantage is you can see what's happening here. Sometimes when you're painting layers, it's sometimes a little confusing as to what layer you're on and what you're doing. But when you do this, you can say, oh yeah, well all this stuff is transparent, and this is where the pink is, so it's all good. Anyway, that's the way it is. So just so you know. And again, I'm just sort of shaving a bit off the sides here. And I'm not trying too hard, just doing a little something, just to demonstrate the effect. And like before, bring that strength down to give just a bit of color. And going through the different display modes here again. Again, settling on color. Bring it down. All right. We're kind of getting a little redundant here, so let's skip ahead, see if we can find something a little more interesting. That's it from just sort of started. This is again, like I said before, once you've done that, you can always go at any time and change the strength settings. Now, actually, I'm going to pause right here because I just thought of something. See this red bar? We've discussed this in another video where when you have multiple thingies, all right, in this case layers, and only one can be affected at the same time, like if you would do a paint stroke, you're just going to be doing it on the current layer. That little red bar there is saying, hey, this is the current layer, this is what you're actually going to paint on. This yellow bit, this is just like a highlight, so think of that as like when you're highlighting files or so on and so forth, where you can do multi-select, hold Alt and Shift, and you select a few of these and maybe delete them or whatever. So don't mistake this yellow bar for highlighting, which is a way of sort of selecting this thing for another operation, versus the current active layer which you're actually going to be working on. So keep that straight, okay? And here we go. Again, just tweaking the relative strength, so on and so forth. You get the idea. We'll move on to the next stage now. Okay, so now we're going to do something a little different because we have 3 layers here showing us color type, so we've kind of beat that subject to death. But at the same time, we will be doing something similar but different. We're going to create a new layer, and this one's going to call hue because we're going to take the whole general face, the whole sort of skin, and sort of change the, just very subtly change the hue. Oh, wait, this is interesting here. Let me bring this back. What I did is, when you create a new layer, it just starts off on the top. And then I just dragged it down so it's just over the base. I had to do it twice because I missed it the first time. There we go. So now this hue will operate, whatever I do on here is going to operate directly on the base, and this stuff is going to go on top of it. Okay? So I'm going to now choose a color that I'm going to sort of hue the entire face with. Oh yes, and again, for this pause, the image capture program I'm using right now, it doesn't show dialog boxes. So there was the standard color picker that you're used to seeing that came up there, and I chose the color. Okay. And here we go. And this is kind of like, I'm going for like an olive complexion, so I picked a really strong olive color. But again, we're going to bring that opacity, that strength down to a really low value afterwards. So we start off extreme, and then we blend it down from there. And I'm just mainly going for the face area. Either this could have been the makeup foundation, or she just naturally has that hue to her skin, or so on and so forth. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we just need to do the face, so we're not going to worry about the neck and all that business. And so here we go, and we're just really subtle, okay? Because it's too much and she looks like an alien. We don't want that. So we're just going for a subtle hue change. So like I said, this is taking the original colors in the texture map, and it's replacing the hue with what I painted on top of it. And again, you can do a complex, you can do different colors in there. You can use a texture as a brush image by dragging it to this box, and if you do it, you can get really elaborate shapes, but in this case we don't want that. And I'm going for a little more blue around the eyes because sometimes people have thin skin, and there tends to be, you can see very subtle blueness that's from the blood vessels or whatever. And so we're going to do that here, but it kind of blends in with the eyeshadow too. So again, this is not a perfect job, we're just demonstrating concepts. And oh yes, okay, what happened is there, it was too much like the eyeshadow, so I undid it, and I chose a different color here, and that's what that pause was. I was choosing a color which you couldn't see. And see, this is looking a little more natural now, I think. And again, you can always tweak these levels. You can create a separate layer if you want to have multiple, if you want the olive hue to be different from the eye hue. Oh, and here I chose a little bit of red, and this is real. If you want to go for realism, you put a bit of red around the nose, on the tip of the nose around here. People tend to get a little red here, like, you know, they're just, I don't know, sniffling a lot, maybe they have a cold, or just generally, I don't know, it's just blood, you know, that's just the way the skin is. There's a lot of color patches all over the place, and I'm just doing all this off the top of my head. Again, if you go by photo references, you can get a lot more realistic and subtle detail, but I'm just doing this more to show the concepts about of these blending layers. And I put a little red over here again as well. And again, this is a little different from the colorize. Color would do both saturation and hue. Hue is just working by itself. So if something was gray and you did hue over top of it, it's still going to be gray because the color is unsaturated. And so here we go, and okay, what's happening? Okay, so I'm creating a new layer again. This is gonna be my last one. It's called decal, and this one I'm gonna leave the normal blending mode. I'm gonna leave 100%. So this is, I'm just basically want to paint little. I'm gonna use this to paint a few freckles, and so there's nothing fancy that has to go on. The only thing we're concerned about is painting in some color and leaving everything alpha around it. So see, just a little dot there. And actually, I'm noticing here, I have symmetry still on. And people are not usually very symmetric when it comes to their dimples and their freckles and what have you. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to turn off symmetry, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to paint just a few random moles here and there. And again, do it however you like. Anyway, you get the picture. So I think this pretty much demonstrates the workflow for using layers in Blacksmith 3D. If you're used to using 2D painting applications, this should be extremely familiar to you. There should be very little difference in the workflow. So I think that pretty much just wraps up what I wanted to show in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I hope you learned a little bit about using layers in Blacksmith 3D. And please stay tuned. I'll be putting out a lot of videos over the next little while. I'm going to try to hit all the major features and several of the minor ones as well. And so stay tuned. See you guys next time. Oh yes, one last thing I forgot to mention. Please check your for updates regularly. You can the software should check once a week for automatic updates. But if you want to check before that, in the help menu you can say check for updates, and I'm doing little tweaks here and there, and as soon as I fix them I just upload new binaries and you can just download them and have the absolute latest build. So yes, check for updates regularly, at least once a week, and you should be good to go.